So welcome, colleagues, to the May CFaS All-Staff Briefing. Really pleased that you could join us this afternoon. I know we're in the middle of holiday season, but it's good to see so many of you joining the call. So if you move to the next slide, please. Can you hear me, Daisy?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, it's just delayed.
All right, okay. So as people will be aware, my name is Merlin Joseph and I'm the Exec Director for Children and Families and Schools, just in case we've had some new people join the CFaS family. If there is anyone that's joined CFaS recently, just let us know in the chat, and if people can just give them a little welcome to our family. Okay, so we've got quite an exciting agenda today. We've got Jessica Kelly, who is our Senior Policy Officer and Positive Action. So she's going to talk through Pride, which I'm really looking forward to hearing. Okay, next slide, please. So just in terms of today's agenda, I'm going to give you very headline feedback from the Ofsted visit that took place last week and the week before. I have put some brief update in the news bulletin that people will have seen. So I'm just going to give you a very, very brief update on that and what the next steps associated with the inspection. And then, as I said, Jessica is going to take you through presentation in connection with Pride. And then there'll be an opportunity at the end for any questions that you may have in terms of what you've heard. I will also talk to you about the financial position. And again, very, very brief, just headline feedback in terms of the outcome. So without further ado, shall we move to the next slide? Okay, so our care, we had a focus visit on our care experience element of CFaS. And that took place, started on the 13th of May, and was really for about 2 weeks. So Ofsted left the building last Thursday, but there are some next steps subsequently. But just to give you some headline feedback in terms of the actual process. What I want to say, first of all, and I've said it several times, is really to thank everybody that was involved in supporting the Ofsted focus visit. We really got to see how CFaS works in terms of teamwork, supporting each other, because the Ofsted process can be very intense. We were in that week of, making sure that we look after our well-being in terms of mental health week, and I think you really came into that space supporting colleagues. What Ofsted said to us is that one of the things that we do really well here, and we know that, is that they felt really welcomed by colleagues across CFaS, and obviously particularly our corporate parenting service area, because that's where the area of focus was. Really welcomed, opened our doors, or our cases, if you like, to their scrutiny. They said that, they could see some real improvement since the last inspection that was last year. Real progress. They felt that people were working really hard to improve the outcome of our care experience young people. Our personal advisors, they felt that they were passionate, they were ambitious, and wanted to do their very, very best to improve and support those care experience young people. So, a real shout out and well done to them. Sue, obviously, and Penny, leading the charge for that. Really worked hard during those 2 weeks to make sure we were able to put our best foot forward. And of course, our QA unit and other colleagues around CFaS supported the process. They obviously highlighted some areas of improvement. We produced a self-assessment of our care leavers work, and we were honest in that, and we said we know we're still on a journey. There is still things that we know that we need to do to improve the service offer. They did mention that the care leavers offer was much more substantial, but we recognise that there is still a lot to do in terms of opportunities for those young people around apprenticeships, work experience, and employment. What they felt was that we hadn't done enough to promote the offer. So we're going to look at how we can make sure that the offer is promoted widely. So on our website, on the Care Leaver Offer website, but also making sure that our Children Care Council can do more to support that. And of course, our personal advisors who know the offer well. They felt that there'd been a step change in terms of corporate parenting. So not only for our care experienced young people, but also for our children looked after in terms of the revitalised corporate parenting board, which has a champion approach, number of subgroups that sit under that. And that board is now chaired by the chief exec, Alan Menzies. So they really felt that that was a good start in terms of moving things forward. They also felt that we'd responded to Mark Riddle, who's the DFE advisor for care experienced young people. He'd set us a really significant challenge, and they felt we were rising to that. They did recognise that there were some inconsistencies across our pathway planning. We know that we're going to be addressing that with staff within the corporate parenting to support them to ensure that there's a consistent approach to pathway planning. And we also told them we're in the middle of reviewing the pathway plan because we recognise it's too long. They did speak to quite a number of our care experienced young people, and there was some really positive feedback from some young people. Really felt that they got a huge amount of support from their personal advisor, and they really didn't feel that they could be where they are without the support of their PAs and their social workers. So, again, well done to you guys. But some of our care experienced young people felt that things weren't as we would want them to be, particularly in their accommodation. We've got some care experienced young people in accommodation in Hull, and they felt that, those accommodations wasn't at the standard we would want it to be. And some felt that they were probably emotionally not ready to move into their own tenancy. So all things that we recognise and all things that we know that we will be doing our utmost to address, because we absolutely want those kids or young people to do their very, very best and become model citizens of East Riding. So the next steps is that we're going to receive a draft report on the 23rd, which is tomorrow, and I'm on leave, but I'm going to have to look at that draft report, even though I'm on leave. And unfortunately, Penny, I'll be sending her a text while she's sipping pina coladas on holiday and ask her to comment as well. So, so we're going to have a look at the draft report in collaboration with Sue and get those comments back to Ofsted by the 31st of May. During that period, if we feel that we need to push back, we will. We've got an opportunity to amend any points of accuracy or where we feel that maybe the tone of the report isn't where we would want it to be. So we get that opportunity, and then we'll receive a pre-publication letter on the 10th of June, and that will be embargoed, and then the report will be published on the 17th of June. So that's the process. And in terms of ongoing inspection, it's unlikely that we will have a focus visit around care leavers in the future. The next inspection will be the full inspection, the ILACs, which will be probably around 18 months' time, and that will be to look at all aspects of children's services. So that's it, really. So thank you again for everyone who was involved in the inspection process. You really need to be proud of yourself, because actually the process was very, very smooth, and they were very clear that isn't their experience elsewhere. So well done to everybody. Okay, I'm going to move on now to give you a very, very brief update on the financial position. So, um, so over the last couple of months, finance colleagues have been working on the outturn. So basically what that means is what we spent for 23-24. And then we'll be in the midst of looking at our financial planning over the next 12 months. And we'll get our first monitoring of where we are in terms of spend, probably end of this month, beginning of June. And then that report will go to Cabinet before elected members, and they will scrutinise and obviously challenge CFaS in terms of their current financial position. So what you can see in terms of the outturn, so what we spent at the end of 2023-4, so end of March, 31st of March this year, is that we're looking at a 9.9 million overspend. So when we overspend, it just carries forward. So that's the current position, which obviously is significant. But there are some challenges, obviously, that we face in terms of how we got to that position. We have some strategies in place to address that. And I think what I would say is that in the main, the challenges associated with our overspend relates to home to school transport, agency placement. So when I talk about agency placements, I'm talking about the independent fostering agency market, and I'm also talking about residential provision that is not ours. So that's where the huge spend comes from, as well as the fact that we have quite a number of agency staff within CFaS. And again, that puts a burden on our finances. So those are the big spends, and those are the areas that are our priorities in tackling for 24, 25 and beyond. I think some good news, of course, what we've seen in home to school transport is that they have actually spent lower that was predicted, so 600,000 lower than what was predicted. So all of that obviously will impact on the overall overspend and hopefully work towards reducing it as we move forward. Safeguarding and support services, 1.4 million, increased pressure. So that means that whilst there were some figures put forward in terms of what we thought colleagues would spend, in fact, we've gone over that figure by 1.4 million. And as I said, it's in the main around complexity of need in terms of our children who are looked after, and also around those children who are placed out of county. And I know Mark Monkman, who holds the portfolio for Children's Home, we're looking at building our own, and some of that work has happened. And we're due to open a couple of homes this year. So that will help relieve some of that burden. The other area that we are working hard on, as you can see, fostering fortnight. So well done to Sue. It's everywhere. Pink, pink, pink. In terms of supporting our recruitment of foster carers. So we hope the widespread comms that we've done on this will mean that we will have additional foster carers for 24, 25 and beyond, which will mean we're less reliant on the independent market. So I'm hoping that those figures will start to adjust. I think and in SEND specialists, again, probably the area that is in particular where we see huge amounts of spend is the high needs block in terms of supporting those kids with special educational needs and disabilities. But we've got lots and lots of plans in place to try and address that, or certainly for the overspends to not increase. And that's a key thing, so that we can then start digging into the pressures. Some of the things that are a positive that members agreed, they agreed that we could carry forward funding to support school uniform, which is very good in terms of cost of living crisis. We've also got funding from DFE, Skills for Care grant, and that's to support our ASYE program, and hopefully will support the future workforce, in particularly in social care. So a lot happening. When we had a previous meeting, quite a number of you raised a number of things that you felt could impact on the budget deficit. We're looking at that. One of the things that was raised, it was around us being a bit more commercialized, selling our wares, if you like, because we have some really fantastic services. The music service is an example of that, and we probably need to be in a space where we're actually selling that. Our psychology service is very, real high standards there, and we need to do more to sell those services to others. So, and any other thoughts that you might have that might help us with our budget position, please shout out, because no idea is a silly idea, because we really want to make an inroad on that 9.9 million pressure. Over the course of time, obviously, we'll bring you some more detail in terms of the budget position and some of the activities that we're doing to address it. So there'll be probably a longer slot, but also an opportunity for me to hear, and for the senior leadership team to hear from you as to how we may go about doing that. And I think it's important to say that, in East Riding, we have some particular pressures because we are one of the least or the lowest funded organisation across the country for pupils with SEND. We're at the bottom of the rung. So what I'm not looking at doing is just cutting services. That is that is not what it's about. It's about how we work differently together with our partners to affect that figure. One of the things that we're doing at the moment is looking at our early help offer, and at a future meeting we'll bring some of that detail to the staff briefing, so that you can hear exactly some of the plans that we have in place to address that. So whilst that figure is high and daunting, I think what I would say in terms of reassurance that everybody connected with CFaS and wider corporate colleagues are supporting us, working with us to reduce that deficit. Okay, I'm going to stop now because I want to get on to Pride. You've heard about the budget. Don't forget about the budget though. But I think this is a great opportunity to hear from Jessica around the fantastic work that we're doing around our LGBTQ community. So I'll hand over to Jess. Thank you.
Hi everyone, so obviously my name's Jess, I'm the Senior Policy Officer, so I just thought we'd spend a bit of time today reflecting on Pride, what it's about and what we're kind of doing to support and celebrate that. So can I go on to the next slide please? So I just want to start by saying a very early happy Pride to everyone. So June is a really, really special month, which allows us to come together, celebrate how far we've come, and also reflect on the work we've got to do to empower our young people, our families, and everyone in between to support who they are, to really embrace that, to allow them to love who they love, and to be free and safe within this space. It allows us to unite together and really drive forward for meaningful change. So that's kind of what the theme of this year is about. It's about reflecting, it's about empowering, and it's about uniting. So I thought I'd start with a little bit of a reflection on the history of what is Pride and where did it come from. So why did we celebrate Pride in June? June is Pride Month because it coincides with the anniversary of the 1969 Stonewall riots. A lot of people think that Pride is simply a celebration and a chance to have a good time, and I'm not denying it, it really is a chance to have a good time, but it's also a really significant moment in history for the LGBTQIA+ community and for the wider community, because that really does ripple and affect all of us. So on the next slide, I'll just show you a video about, where it came from and what it was about. Next slide, please.
Mark Siegel was 18 when he moved away from his family in 1969 and came to Greenwich Village, a well-known bohemian district in New York City.
When I was 18 years old, I knew I was gay, but I didn't even know what the right word for it was. And that was one of my hangouts, Stonewall. I would usually go to the end of the bar, and that's where my friends, street kids, drag queens, would hang out.
Most Stonewall customers were regularly harassed by the police.
We were second, third, fourth class citizens, but this place, allowed us to be here. We could be arrested out on the street, so this was safe.
On June 28, 1969, Mark had been in New York just 6 weeks.
So that night, I was in the bar, and all of a sudden, the lights started flickering on and off. I looked over the person next to me, I said, "What's going on?" And they were casual. They said, "Oh, just another raid." That set off alarm bells inside me. I was nervous as hell. And the police had no use for me. They're going after the drag queens. They're throwing insults around. But me, they just carted me and let me out. And I was glad to get out of the bar.
When Mark got outside, a small crowd was gathered around the entrance.
People would start applauding when someone got out. People started saying things to the police as the door would open. And the most vocal and loudest were the drag queens. They had nothing to lose. Stand up stronger. Everything society could take away from you had already taken away from them. This was their home. Somebody threw something at the door. Ruckus started. Police came out of the door chasing somebody. Then they went inside because they felt endangered. The police barricaded themselves inside the bar. Basically, all hell broke loose.
By the time police reinforcements arrived, Christopher Street had filled with several hundred people.
Police came out, people dispersed, people ran down that street. They ran up various other streets, Bleecker Street, Gay Street. They just were all over here. It was one of the greatest nights in the history for gay people.
If you want to go on to the next slide. So what followed the video and the riot for Stonewall was a display of solidarity and protest, and that lasted for 6 days, with thousands of people all over America joining in over that period to protest and to kind of form that solidarity around the LGBTQIA plus community. The following year, that's when we saw our first Pride. That took place in Chicago, San Francisco, LA, and New York. And then 2 years from that, London had its first ever Pride, where there was 2,000 participants who marched together calling for gay rights. And one of the organisers, Peter Satchell, said, "Our aim was to show that we were proud and not ashamed, determined to come out of the shadows and stand up for our rights. We wanted to make ourselves visible and demand LGBT liberation." And becoming visible and coming out of the shadows can be seen by by the fact that more than 1.5 million people took part in the Pride in London last year to celebrate and protest in support of the LGBTQIA plus rights. There was 600 community groups that marched and 30,000 people that actually took part in the annual parade. So I think that's just incredible to see how far we've come. And Pride really helps us to protest about these specific demands and propelling causes like gay marriage and AIDS awareness, and to more recently, transgender rights. This year marks 21 years since Section 28, the law that banned the promotion of homosexuality in the UK, was repealed, which, this Section 28 effectively silenced the discussion around LGBTQIA plus issues within schools. And it also marks 24 years since it was illegal to be gay in the military. And if it wasn't for these Pride events and these protests, these conversations just wouldn't be at the forefront of society. And I hear a lot, when we start to talk about pride, and we bring it up into conversation, people say that it's unnecessary, and they ask, where is straight pride? And I was holding training yesterday around LGBTQIA plus sexuality, sex and gender, and someone put it really beautifully. They said, you'd never question the importance of Remembrance Day. You'd never argue back against that. And I thought, you know, that's exactly kind of what this embodies. It's about reflecting on the past, empowering, uniting for the future, and making sure that history doesn't repeat itself. So if we could just go on to the next slide, please. And also, you know, we're not in a place of equality. You know, there is still inequalities faced. There is so much work to do, and some of the inequalities, you know, faced by the LGBTQIA plus community are listed here. This isn't all of them. This is just a few of the prevalent ones. I'd really, really recommend that people read the LIPSA practice briefing. It's not very long, and I'll pop the link in the chat after we've done this presentation. I think it's about 5 pages long. But you know what they found, it was the first study on LGBTQ young people residential social care experiences. And the findings are really harrowing. And they found that when compared with their peers, these young people had poorer health, well-being outcomes, greater substance use, more traumatic experience, worse sexual well-being, victimization, and heightened educational barriers. That, you know, it's quite a difficult read, but I think it's really important that we do understand, you know, the impact this is having on our LGBTQ young people and kind of the space that they're living in. Within healthcare, the NHS have found that LGBTQIA plus people have a disproportionately worse health outcomes and experiences of healthcare in almost every single aspect, and they fare far worse than others. Within education, the students are more likely to be bullied and isolated due to a lack of specific support. Housing, 24% of young homeless people are part of the LGBTQIA plus rainbow. And within employment, LGBTQIA plus employees are more likely to experience workplace conflict and harassment, with 55% of trans workers reporting such experiences. So I think it's really important that we do start to understand this and really build our awareness of it, because without awareness, we can't do actionable change. Next slide, please. So what can we do to support being a supportive adult? There's quite a few little icons on the screen, so I'll just talk through a few of them with you. So being an authentic ally is extremely important. And this kind of is the understanding that allyship is a year-round commitment. We're not just going to do it in June, we're going to do it for the whole year. It's not limited to a single month. And I'm sure we've all seen the rainbows and seeing how we transform our logos. And these are really important. It's not enough. That gesture isn't enough for our young people and anyone under that rainbow. And this can be called rainbow washing, when we're just doing we're just putting the rainbows and we're not doing anything else. So it's really important that we follow up on our actions. And while we are, I really support putting the rainbow lanyards on. I really support having ally pins like the one you can see on the screen, because these are silent, visual cues for our young people to recognise that this is a safe space where they can identify and be themselves without fear of harm. And when we're talking about fear of harm, when we're supporting our young people, it's really important to consider that all of the factors that might influence their safety and well-being. Really take time to get to know them and understand their lived experience and how they might face risks and how that might be different to to other peers. So if we look back at the inequalities on the slide before, how are these going to impact and how are these going to change the support that we need to provide for our young people? And it's really important to, take this into consideration, but not put someone in harm by explicitly saying this when other people might be around that might not be a safe space for them. I think one of the things, from a lot of the research that I've done is these young people really just want us to be authentic in championing their rights, their lives, and kind of who they are as people. This is hugely important to their confidence and well-being. And that affirmation, from adults can come in various ways. People have said being part of that community themselves has helped them create that link, but also freely talking about and uplifting voices from this community. And one young person said she once started talking to me about RuPaul's Drag Race and drag queens, and I love that. And I thought, she's pretty chill, so she's not going to have a problem with me. And it was just that kind of relaxed conversation about the community, about things that kind of could be she might be thinking about, she might be watching in her own time, and just having that relaxed conversation about it. And that really, really made a difference to that young person, and they felt it was a safe space for them. And then when we're thinking about that, it's including LGBTQIA plus inclusive literature and visuals in all of the direct work that you do. Even if that young person or that family, hasn't indicated that they're part of that rainbow, firstly, they might not feel safe enough to disclose that. Secondly, this really normalizes it for people who are part of that community and promotes this inclusivity of learning, which can only benefit everyone involved and not just people who are part of that rainbow. We need to really make sure that when we're supporting people, check with them if anyone else knows about their sexuality or gender, or if this is something that they've only disclosed to you. Do not share their sexuality or gender identity or expression with anyone without their explicit permission, unless their safety really does depend on it. This includes things like writing it down on forms, assessments, or any other paperwork. We really, really don't want to put people in further harm. It's really important to ask these questions. I've popped the Lollipop group on there. Understand what support groups we have available within the East Riding and also online and virtually. It's really important that we've got this in our toolkit to signpost and support where needed. I've spent time with the Lollipop group, and it is such a wonderful and safe space for our LGBTQIA plus young people to meet, make friends and socialise. However, if we are going to recommend these groups, it's really, really important that we do so when the young person's on their own or when they're with people who they've expressly said to you that they know about their sexuality or gender, and it is safe to disclose this. Don't make assumptions. I know it's really easy. We all live really, really fast lives, but, ask. It's one of the quotes from the Lollipop groups was, "It's worse for you to assume than it is for you to ask." So it's really important that we just ask. Don't be scared to get things wrong. Don't be scared to, be clumsy with it. We will slip up. I slip up. But it's how you deal with that afterward. Say you're sorry. Ask how you can improve next time, and do your own learning. If you keep slipping on something, find out where that's come from and unpick that a little bit and apologise and move on. And one of the big things is education and awareness. And if we could just go on to the next slide, please. So I'm really, really excited. Hopefully some of you have already seen this email, but we're doing a Children and Adults Pride Festival of Learning event. It's taking place from the 17th of June to the 21st of June. So it's a week-long virtual festival of learning around topics within the LGBTQIA plus community. We've got people coming from partner agencies, we've got allies coming to do presentations, and we've also got lived experience in there, so you can really get a good understanding of different experiences and really build on your knowledge as practitioners to really support the young people, families and children that we're working with. If anyone wants to get involved in this, please do send me an email or a Teams message. It's Jessica Kelly, and I'd love for you to contribute in any way that you'd feel comfortable in. We've got people giving essays, we've got people suggesting songs that we can put within the booklet that we're going to provide along with this, so that you can take it. You can take it with you and use as a reflection booklet, and also to really further your knowledge, because we understand that you might not be able to attend some of these. So we've got a reflection booklet alongside that. And if you want to pop anything in there, if you kind of want to give your own lived experience, or you've really read a book that resonates with you and you think will support other practitioners, please let me know, and I'll support you in however you want to kind of be involved in this Festival of Learning, because I think it's really, really important to give space to anyone who feels that they can kind of promote something that's important to them. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be an excellent week, and there's some really, really great presentations. Next slide. And if anyone is looking to volunteer, East Riding and Hull Pride, all of the prides that you can read on the screen, so Beverley, Bridlington, Hull, Gould and the Wolds, which is in Pocklington, they're all looking for volunteers. So if people want to be part of the parade, if people want to support the East Riding in promoting that we are a safe and inclusive place to work and to live, I'd really, really love to hear from you, and you can be part of the celebration and be part of the protest for Pride. I think they're such incredible events, and it's a real testament to the area that we have 5 events. I'm just counting then. We have 5 Pride events, and what an amazing place to live and to work, that people want to celebrate and feel that they can protest about things that are important to them. And we can't do it without volunteers. So if anyone does want to be a part of this and does want to show their support, please let me know, and I'd love to hear from you and how you can support with that. Next slide.
We've been taught that silence would save us, but it won't.
I can't live my life straight because you're straight. I can't. I just gotta live my life for me and do it for me because this is my life.
I've done my hair down, I've worn the dresses, I've done things that aren't natural to me to please other people.
I was told to wipe off my makeup and be a boy. What they should have told me was to be myself.
If other people are uncomfortable, that is not your problem. That is their problem.
I want to tell other queer people that it is okay to be yourself. We won't stand for hatred.
LGBTQ+ people are strong and resilient. We're not gonna go away.
It's so important that we keep fighting for the right to be who we are, the right to love whoever we want to love.
Like all civil rights movements that have gone before, we're not going to give up.
I'm still a proud gay man, okay?
We have to be out and proud and visible where we can for the people where they can't.
I live Pride every single day.
Refuse to ever give up.
What do we do? Stand up, fight back. 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 What do we do? Stand up, fight back.
Les amamos.
Puro jayisto. Matamite ne.
I love you. Stay strong.
Next slide, please. So these are just some recommended books that I've recommended to some East Riding schools that they can use just to support either with their young people or some for their slightly older young people as well. And there's a lot of resources on SharePoint with some recommended books and recommended kind of lesson plans and things like that that we can all utilise. And if people ever need to contact me, I'm more than happy to support with recommending resources, some literature. That's what I'm here for, so please do utilise me, and I'd be more than happy to help. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. That was brilliant. It really was. Yeah, absolutely worth a round of applause for that. If I'm in Beverley on the 29th of June, I'm happy to volunteer. Spend half my time in London, half up here. So I'll have a look at my diary and be in touch. And I mean, there was just so much there, and really helpful to hear that. I haven't yet got my lanyard, so if there is a spare one going, then I'm happy to wear it. It's amazing. In terms of the session that you were talking about, I just wondered whether or not the youth council are involved in that, because I met with them probably a couple of weeks ago, and you know, they are amazing in terms of some of the things and some of the challenges some of our young people are facing in the East Riding, which that it falls into that category. I don't want to share some of the things that they were saying, but I know that they will be really interested in to share some of their stories as part of that event, the event that you're putting on for children and adults. And if they're not, I'm sure Detty will want to support that, Detty Tyler.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a really lovely idea, and I'll get in contact. Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So this is an opportunity if anyone's got any questions from what they've heard. If you want to put it into the chat, or if you want to raise your hand to ask a question, we're here to answer anything that you have. If you haven't, that's fine as well. But as Jessica says, if anyone wants to follow up on any of the things that she's articulated today, or have any concerns about, families you're working with or anything else that you might want to find out a bit more about, she's available to respond to that. If anyone wants to give me some good ideas about how we can reduce the budget as well, please do contact me. Okay, if there isn't any questions, I'm just going to check if there's anything in the chat. So just thanks to Jess for some work that she's done, and some thanks for the presentation. Okay, I don't get a thanks for the budget presentation that I gave. I guess that's people don't really want to talk about that, but we do need to. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm going to leave you to the rest of your afternoon. But thank you very much for joining us for the all-staff briefing. If there's anything you want us to be raising at these sessions, please contact us. If you want anything in the staff bulletin, please contact us. And if you want us to shout out to anyone to say welcome to the CFaS family, or just something that you think would be really wonderful to share, please do. Okay, without further ado, thank you. Enjoy the afternoon and the rest of the day. Thank you.